This is Sapphire FM 97.5 live with Layal. I'm joined today by Russell Morris, who is performing tonight at Club Sapphire in Merimbula at 8 p.m. The past 5 years for him have been an incredible musical journey and privileged for Russell Morris, who has been fortunate enough to create and release 2 albums of blues and roots music. How are you today, Russell?
I'm great, Layal. Thanks.
Yeah.
It was a long trip getting here. I tell you what, we're on the phone, all to the listeners out there. We're trying to... Where are you now? Well, I've lost... We kept losing transmission too because I was going through the hills. But it's great to be here. We thought we'd be here at 3 o'clock this afternoon, but that didn't happen. We didn't land till after 2.
Yeah. So can you tell us a bit about the 2 previous albums and who produced them?
The 2 previous ones to Red Dirt, Red Heart were Van Diemen's Land and, of course, Sharkmouth. And they were produced by Mitch Cairns, and he played bass on those as well. And he also produced Red Dirt, Red Heart. And we're pretty happy with the 3 of them. Happiest with the third one. I am anyway, and so were the players. So, yeah, we've had a great time for the last 5 years.
So Sharkmouth went to be the highest-selling Australian album of 2013, picking an ARIA Award for Best Blues and Roots, reaching number 1 in the charts and surpassing platinum sales, a very unexpected but welcome success. Why was it very unexpected?
Well, I hadn't had any success for 30 years, so I never expected anything that I would record would get airplay, and people, because if you don't get airplay, people don't go out and buy it. So I decided to do a blues album, and a number of people said, why would you do blues? Because it's not going to sell, you know. And I said, well, I don't care, but that's what I like. I want to do blues, and I want to do blues about Australian stories. And they said, well, it's never going to sell. I said, well, I don't care, you know. And they said, no one will play it. And actually what happened is the community stations jumped on it and played it, and everyone said, oh, no, community radio can't give you a hit. Well, it gave me the biggest hit I've ever had in my career, you know, and community radio is a sleeping giant out there, and it really is a great way to get your things across to people right across the country. You know? Yeah,
that sounds really great. So Van Diemen's Land was nominated for Best Blues and Roots at the 2014 ARIA Awards and certificate gold sales, and was the highest charting album for your 50 years careers to date, debuting at number 4 on the overall ARIA charts. How did you feel about that?
It was pretty exciting because it's always hard to follow up a hit album because people tend to, like, I remember when The Real Thing was such a big hit, people were wanting to hear another Real Thing or something. So the best thing to do is try not to repeat what you've done, I think. And so we just weren't sure how people would embrace it, whether they would or not, you know. And we're pretty delighted when it did all that. And we also won the Best Album and Best Producer and Best Male for the Blues, the Chain Awards. So that was really a wonderful feeling. It was great.
Awesome. Can you tell us a bit about the 3rd album and final album in the series of Australian Stories, which is also produced by Mitch Cairns, is it?
Cairns, yeah, just like Cairns up in Brisbane, Queensland. The 3rd album, the first album was urban. It was about the back streets of Melbourne and Sydney. The 2nd album was the bigger picture of Australia, like some of the stories that affected us, like the World Wars, the convict ships that brought people out here, Eureka Stockade, the Shearers' Strike, which became the beginning of the Labor Party. And so that was like the bigger picture of Australia. So for the 3rd one, I couldn't do a history of Australia without including the people who have been here for 40,000 years. So there's some Indigenous stories in there as well, some songs about Alice Springs, songs about Nullarbor Sand, the Nullarbor Plains, which is a magical place. If anyone hasn't been there, try and get out to see the Nullarbor and go across the middle of Australia. It's timeless. It's like you stand out there and you stand on that sand and you look at as dusk is occurring, and you look in every direction and it's just as far as your eye can see. Then you look up at the sky when it gets black and you look at the stars and galaxies and realise that up there there's more stars and galaxies than the sand that you're actually standing on. That moment you feel really insignificant, but you feel connected, really connected to the universe. So that's what we tried to achieve with this album, trying to get that feeling of open space.
Yeah. So what would you say your songs and topics are usually about, and how do you feel about co-writing?
A lot of the songs I did co-write on these albums, so I do like co-writing. I like to control the lyrical content, and it's an interesting process when you're writing, because you're trying to capture a story, but without making it too literal, because otherwise it's like eating porridge without milk and sugar. So you try to keep it with a bit of poetic license in it, and some lyrics that make it sound half of a poem, but also you've got to put some facts in there as well. So I find it interesting. I love writing, but I also hate it because it's tormenting.
So would you say that your songs and topics are usually about Australian content?
Only with these three albums.
Yeah.
Normally I tend to write... there's a couple of songs on this last album, Red Dirt, Red Heart, which are just straight songs about loners and about people who are conflicted. So there's a few of those on there. And there's a few factual songs on there as well. So I tried to get a good balance on the last album, because after doing the first two albums, I realised what people liked from the both albums, so I tried to combine it on the last one and capture that.
Awesome. So what are your influences for this album, and why have you changed your style throughout the years so much?
I've changed my style to stop from getting bored, and I don't really want to keep walking the same trench backwards and forwards. So I tend to change my style, and I tend to explore areas that I haven't done. So I quite like doing that. And my influences for these three albums, my very early influences that I started off in the music business were the first... What got me interested in music was the Rolling Stones' very first album, which was a blues album. And then I started to listen to people like John Lee Hooker and Robert Johnson, Lead Belly, Blind Willie McTell, and that sort of stuff, and influenced me. So for this album, I sort of drew on those. I didn't want to copy them, but I sort of remembered that all those old songs that they wrote would go, they were very short songs, and they were verse, solo, chorus, finish.
Yeah.
So I wanted to try and go along those lines, because there's some songs on the album that are only 2.5 minutes long.
Yeah. So do you have a favourite gig you have performed at so far for this tour, and is there a particular gig that you're looking forward to on this tour?
Well, I do like Thredbo Blues Festival, that's great. Later on in the year we do Byron Bay Blues, which is always fun, so I'm looking forward to that. That should be an interesting thing to do, because you always get to see, when you're travelling around the country all the time, you don't get to see great acts. But when you're at Byron, you're stuck there, and it's great, because in the tent over there there's so-and-so, and that tent over there is so-and-so, so you're rushed to see them. I'm looking forward to when I get up to Byron. I would like to see Vintage Trouble, which I think are a really great band, and some of the other blues. They're not a blues act, they're some more soul, really a soul band, but they're really, really interesting. It gives you a great opportunity to see other acts, so I love the festivals.
Yeah, so where else are you performing, and after your tour, what are your plans?
We do Thredbo, we do Byron, we do Brisbane next week, and we do the Spiegel Tent in Adelaide next week as well, and we do the Agnes Blues Festival up in Queensland. Then I go on holidays for 10 days, and I come back and we start to try and prepare to go to America, because we're going to try and go over there. We've got interest, and hopefully, because you hear these things in the music business, you know what it's like. Oh, this is going to happen for you. You're going to do this, you're going to do that, and you tend to spruik it and go, this is what I'm doing, and all of a sudden it all falls flat. So they're the plans at the moment. They're looking positive, and we're pretty positive. And if we go over there, I'm really looking forward to sort of performing in America and Canada, because I think it'll be interesting to present an Australian slant on the blues.
Yeah. So you've got your guitar here, and you're going to play us a song soon. But first, do you name your guitars, and how do the names of the guitars come about?
Yeah, I don't name my guitars. No, I like them. I have personal favourites and things that I really like, but I don't name them. That really started with Chuck Berry and B.B. King. They named their guitars. Yeah, Lucille was B.B. King's. No, I don't name my guitars. I don't even talk to them anymore.
No.
Unless I can't get a song, and then I abuse them.
Oh, okay.
If something doesn't come out right.
If you were able to give advice to your 16-year-old self, what would you say?
Don't follow the Pied Piper. Don't listen to the radio and see who's really currently big at the moment and go, oh, I'm going to write songs like that, and follow that direction. Follow what was the first music that really you loved and you thought that was part of for me it was the blues.
Yeah.
Follow that style, whether it's even playing polka. Do it and play it, because you'll do it with the right attitude, and it may be something that's not in vogue at the moment, but the wheel always is spinning. And all of a sudden that wheel comes round, and but if you start copying everybody else, or all successful artists, say for instance, I wanted to be like Coldplay, so I'm going to write songs like Coldplay, and we do but Coldplay, that ship's already left. There's no point me being Coldplay. The Coldplay's already there. That's there. You've got to find an identity for yourself.
Yeah. So do you have a favourite thing about the music industry?
No, because it's so ambiguous, this music industry, and it's not a level playing field. There's so many people who I just think are so talented, and they just haven't had the right breaks. And I think it's sort of a bit of an enigma. It's such a puzzle, the music business. Sometimes you see people who are so successful and you can't understand why, and then other people who aren't successful and you can't understand why either. That's why it's not a level playing field. And I find that a bit of a strange one. And the other thing, which is an enigma, the internet is such a wonderful tool, but it's also a destructive tool to the music industry, because record companies really don't develop recording artists anymore like they used to. They don't put money into them because it's not worth it. There's not enough records sold. So, and the things that are selling records are the X Factor, The Voice, and if they can get someone from Neighbours to sing a song, or someone from Home and Away, those sort of things. Soon you'll be seeing all the people from those horrible lifestyle shows doing record deals. That'll happen next.
Yeah. If you were to change something about the industry, what would it be and why?
I would change the government's law.
Yeah.
I'd make the government change the law to, I think it's 30% Australian content. I'd make them change it to 50%. And of that 50%, 30 of it would have to be new material, not regurgitated old songs from the past. 30% would have to be new material and 20% old material. And I'd bring that in as a law, and I think that would help change the industry here, and it would help nurture some of the young up-and-coming acts that really need a leg up.
Yeah, so what can people expect from your gig tonight at 8 p.m. at Club Sapphire in Merimbula?
Me trying to carry 3 drunken musicians through an hour and a half of music. No, what they'll get is a little taste of each album, and depending on the 60s creature that sleeps inside me, I may do some of the songs from the 60s that are barely recognisable to me anymore because it's been so long ago. But I tend to do those because if people have come along to hear and they've paid their money, I will always try and entertain and try and do what they would like to hear. So it's virtually up to the audience, but they still have to, their price that they pay to hear the 60s stuff, they need to listen to the blues stuff and hear the stories, yeah.
So do you have a support act for tonight, and do you usually like to keep the crowd waiting with a support act, or do you usually like to get straight into it?
Now, the support act tonight is... and one of my friends suggested I go and see him because he's a mate of his, and his name is, I've got it here on my phone somewhere, Morgan, I think it's Morgan something. I've forgotten.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's one of my friends up in Townsville said you've got to go and see him. He's a young guy. He's only about 17, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll get his name before I go on. Yeah.
If you weren't in the music industry, what would you be doing?
By choice or by necessity?
I guess by choice, yeah.
By choice, I'd like to be an archaeologist or an astrophysicist, but unfortunately I don't have the mathematical prowess to be an astrophysicist, unfortunately. But they're the two things I'm mostly interested in.
Yeah, that's really
History
cool.
and astrophysics.
Yeah. So what do you reckon it makes a musician a true songwriter and artist?
I think everyone that writes a song is a true musician and a true artist. To actually put pen to paper and write a song is a great achievement. It's bringing something out of nothing, and that's you're giving birth to something. So it doesn't matter how successful or how unsuccessful. I think all people that attempt to write songs are artists and they're musicians, no matter what level it is on.
Yeah. So what songs are you going to play us live on Sapphire FM now?
I'll play you my very favourite sort of music when it comes to blues and country. Very, very early in the career of music in America, country and blues music were virtually one and the same. And you have people like Lead Belly and Blind Willie McTell, what's his name? Hank Williams, Jimmy Reed. All those guys were playing songs that were almost country and almost blues. And I really like that. It's that Appalachian type of stuff. And then all of a sudden the cowboys, like Gene Autry and all those people, took country music and started singing about cows and horses and things and home on the range, and they took it away from that style of music that I like the most. Yeah. And this is sort of like a version. I don't know if you'll hear my guitar there. I might pull this down a little bit. Oh, put it on there. Oh, no, we better put it back on here. Sorry, folks out there, I've just pulled the microphone off the thing. So I need my...
It's a good microphone, it should pick it up well.
Okay, yeah. This is sort of like almost Appalachian type of music. I've always been a loner, I'm always on my own. Since I was a young boy, I would wander far from home. They'd find me on the highway, miles from anywhere. I love the open spaces when no one else was there. I'd go sailing on, I'm sailing on down that lonesome road, me on my own. Well, I left the town of Tully, my belongings on my back. I headed west, I took myself into the great outback. Sleeping in the open, breathing in the air. The world for me is far away, not worry or a care. I go sailing on, I'm sailing on down that lonesome road, me on my own. Oh, goodbye, me, myself, and I, we're on our own. Oh, goodbye, me, myself, the ground and I go to see the Lord. There before the pearly gates with all the rich and poor. Have I been good, have I been bad, or somewhere in between? It's all the same to you, I'd say it's time for me to leave. I go sailing on, I'm sailing on down that lonesome road, me on my own. Oh, sailing on, yeah, I'm sailing on down that lonesome road.
That was awesome. You're listening to Sapphire FM at 97.5 live with Layal, and I'm joined by Russell Morris, who is performing at 8 p.m. at Club Sapphire Merimbula today. So how did that song come about for you?
That song came about, I wrote it with a guy called Shannon Bourne, and he was fiddling around on his guitar, and he played that. He played that, and then he went, and I said, oh, what's that? And he said, I was just mucking around. I said, do it again.
Yeah.
And he started playing. I said, yeah, stay on, stay. Change. And he changed to the next, yeah. And then I said, let's put it down. So he put it down, and he left, and I wrote the words and the music. And it's about a loner, a guy who is a lone wolf and really just wants to be by himself out in the outback, and he really doesn't like society or towns or anything like that. And he's happiest when he's totally on his own.
So when writing a song, do you usually start with the idea, instrumentation, or the lyrics?
It's all different.
Yep.
Sometimes with the historical songs, I have to start with the idea, because you've got to write about someone's life and the history that went to make in their life and some of the decisions they make. So you have to choose which bits you want to use and sort of shuffle them into the jigsaw puzzle. So I start with a rough outline of lyrics, but sometimes like that I start with the music. And normally I'll start with the music unless it's a historical song, because then I have to start with the lyrics, because I have to write about facts. Otherwise I just sort of make it up as I go along, and a story sort of asserts itself into the melody.
Yeah. So do you think you perform better in the studio or live?
I'm pretty nervous in the studio. I don't like it. Yeah. And I like to write. Writing is a lot of fun for me, but it's also a love-hate relationship. Sometimes it can be really sort of stressing if you can't you've got a really great verse and you can't get a really good hook chorus to make sense, or you've got a great chorus and you can't make the verses work. That drives me insane.
Yeah. What is the best studio that you have recorded it with?
Oh, it doesn't matter about studios. It all depends on the engineer you've got and the musicians. You can record in a lounge room, really. If you've got good mics and a good desk, you can record anywhere. I remember Crowded House did their Together Alone album in a beach house in New Zealand.
Yeah, wow. So you have collaborated with many artists in the past, but is there anyone you would like to collaborate with in the future?
No, not really. It just it depends on the chemistry, how it works out. And no, I don't have any aspirations to work with anyone. So if someone rings me up and says, oh, I want to do something, and you go, oh, all right, have I got the time? You look at the time schedule and you go, okay, what have you got and how do you want to go about it?
So what do you think matters the most when writing a song?
For me, everyone's different. Everyone writes songs differently. Like some people labour over songs and take ages and ages and ages, and they craft it and they recraft it and they craft it, and I can't do that. I've got to write a song incredibly quickly. It's like I've got to get the skeleton and stick it up on a frame. All the words may not be finished, but I have to get the melody and the chorus and the verses, the structure of the song really quickly. I will usually take half an hour to do that structure. Then I will, because I figure that if I still like it the next day, I stick with it. But the trap is for me, as if you write a song and you think, oh, I don't know if I like, I'll keep working at it, and you play it, and then you play it again, and then you work it again, you play it again, and then you play, and then you play it again, you play it again, and you play it so many times that to you it becomes logical. To listeners, someone hears it the first time and goes, that sounds a bit square peg in a round hole. So for me, if I write a song really fast and I get the rough précis of it and it feels good, I know I'm on the right track. But if I labour and labour and labour like I've done in the past, I'll play songs to people in the past and I go, what about this? It's the best song I've ever written, and they just, their eyes glaze over. It's like, really? Okay, yeah. So I think the longer I dwell on something, the more boring it is to outside ears, but the quicker I write it, it seems that people like it much better. Not the whole song, but just the skeleton.
Out of all the songs that you've written, what song do you reckon has given the most impact on others?
Probably Sweet Sweet Love, because they've used it and Wings of an Eagle, because they've been used at weddings and funerals.
Yeah.
So they've probably had the most impact on other people emotionally, because they've used them for those two particular moments in their lives.
Why do you think you're so successful as a musician today? Do you have any tricks up your sleeve or anything like that?
It's total luck. It's like there's 8 doors you've got to choose. And normally in your life, as I was saying before, when you repeat yourself and you keep doing the same thing, you go through door 3 every time you go to. So people on the other side go, hey, Russell's going to come through door 3 today, door 3. The thing is to sometimes just pick door 5 and go through that and do something to surprise people. And I think that's been lucky for me. And I've had some very lucky breaks in my life. The first one was meeting Ian Meldrum and him producing my singles, and that was really good. And then I went through a really dead period. And the second lucky thing was to pick up the newspaper and see a photo of Thomas Archer, the criminal, and for that to virtually talk to me and say, write a song about me. And that's how I started, because I was doing blues and I couldn't quite gel about what I was writing about. And he virtually, this photograph, I was just transfixed. And he just reached across 100 years and said, it was almost like he said, write a song about me, son. Tell people I lived and breathed. Once I'd written that song, I thought, I get it. No wonder I can't write these other blues songs, because I'm trying to write American blues. I'm not American.
Yeah.
So he was Australian. So I wrote about him. Once I'd written that, I thought, that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to write blues and roots about Australia.
So do you decide by yourself what songs to put on an upcoming album, or do you discuss it with other people, and has it always been that way?
I tend to decide myself, but I also play them to other people and just see what they think. And if, say, there's a number of them, a majority of them go, oh, gee, I don't like that track, I think, well, maybe I've got that one wrong.
Has it always been that way?
Yes, yeah.
So I asked before, where was your favourite gig so far on the tour that you're currently on, but what would you say is your favourite place you have performed ever?
That's hard, because everyone's different. It's like having different dance partners.
Yeah. They
all dance differently, and they're all really interesting, and I can't think of any that really stand out as the most, because every place you work is different and has its own beauty.
Is there any venues you would love to perform at in the future that you haven't performed at before?
Yeah, America. We want to do the festivals.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. I want to go over there and see how we stand up in an American market with all those other bands, yeah.
Awesome. So what's the best gig that you have been to as an audience member?
There's a number. The one that stands out the most was Pink Floyd when I was in England and I went to see them at Wembley Stadium. It was just breathtaking.
Yeah.
Incredible stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel more comfortable singing with a guitar than without, and why?
Because I can't dance.
Yeah?
Yeah, I've got to have a guitar, yeah.
How important do you think image for a musician is?
It's not as important as it used to be,
Yeah.
unless you're playing pop music. Although some of the pop male guys aren't like they used to be. In the 60s, it was all pretty boys and things like that. You've still got the pretty boys like the One Direction and things like that, but you've got the different people now who look a little bit different. Ed Sheeran, who's like really looks like the kid next door with the red hair. He's a ginger Megs, but he's so talented. So image isn't so important if your music's really good.
What would you play for us live today on Sapphire FM? So you played Lonesome Blue
Road, yeah.
Yep.
And this one's called God Loves a Sinner.
Yep.
And this is about a guy who leaves his country town of Goondiwindi, and he thinks he's going to go to the big city and really make it big, and he goes there and he gets corrupted and just plays up too much, and he hasn't got the courage to go back home and face sort of failure. He really has to return a failure. But this is called God Loves a Sinner because I often heard the saying that the church, if you go to the church, and they love fallen people so they can redeem them. So that's where that comes from. So here we go. Left my town, never looking back, on the road down to ruin. Gone to Wendy on the lonely track, thought I knew what I was doing. Oh, I felt so hard, temptation and sin. Tell you I never saw it come, big city did me in. Don't preach, don't say a word, God loves a sinner, so I heard. Don't preach, don't make a sound, God loves a sinner, there ain't no doubt. No, I know I got myself to blame, I took all that I could, always looked for the easy way, had a heart made of wood. Country boy with a bad attitude, thought I could conquer it all. Blues living and lose living, too ashamed to go home. Don't preach, don't say a word, God loves a sinner, so I've heard. Don't preach, don't make a sound, God loves a sinner, there ain't no doubt. Got to swallow all my pride and get myself back home. Got to pack up all my cares and woes, get myself back home. They say redemption sometimes comes on the darkest of dawns. You either want it or you don't, your destiny born. Don't preach, don't say a word, God loves a sinner, so I've heard. Don't preach, don't make a sound, God loves a sinner, there ain't no doubt. Don't preach, don't say a word, God loves a sinner, so I've heard. Don't preach, don't make a scene, God loves a sinner, so I believe. I believe, yeah. Gonna get down on my knees, get that down on my knees.
is Layal on Sapphire FM, and I am joined by Russell Morris, who is performing tonight 8 p.m. at Club Sapphire in Merimbula. Tickets can be organised via the venue, and the venue's number is 6495-1306. Russell, how did that song come about, and what do you like most about it?
I love the it's a bad song. It's about a bad guy, so I sort of like that, and that came from just doodling around with that. That's how it started. And that riff just kept going, and I just sang over it, and that's the way it went. Yeah.
So what brought you to the Sapphire Coast and to Club Sapphire in Merimbula?
I worked here before, and we really love it. And I love going to the Eden Museum too.
Yep.
To see old Tom.
Yeah.
I love that story. So I love it all along here. And I used to go fishing with my father, my stepfather, up here. We'd go to Eden and also down to Malakuta and all along this area. So we would always come up here.
Yeah.
So it brings back good memories.
Yeah, Eden's a great place, and especially because I go there for high school, it's a great place to be. What do you do to prepare yourself before performing?
Nothing.
Nothing?
No.
No? So you don't do any vocal warm-ups
No.
or anything that you don't eat or that you do eat?
No.
No? Oh, wow, okay.
I'm one of those horrible people who can sit down and have a 3-course meal and then go on stage. Yeah.
It's been great having you in Sapphire FM at 97.5 today and talking to you live. It's been great, and I look forward to seeing you in the future performing, and you're going to rock it tonight at Club Sapphire.
Thanks, Layal, and thanks for having me on. And it's stations like this that really have broken all those big albums for me, so
Yeah.
I do appreciate it. And thanks for your persistence. I know it
Yeah.
was backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. First I thought I was leaving at 11 o'clock from Melbourne, then I found out we were leaving at 1:30, and it got worse and worse. So we finally made it to all the listeners out there, so thanks for listening and tuning in, and you're living in a wonderful part of the country up here.
No problem. It's been great having you. All right. So up next is Black Dog Blues.
Talented Russell Morris performing his new song Black Dog Blues from his latest album Sharkmouth. Enjoy. Good night.
Good night.
Little honey's in the kitchen where she's cooking up a storm. No good brother-in-law is out on the porch. Sister of mine, well, she's long overdue. And I'm in this back room, Black Dog Blues. Well, the car won't start, so it's sitting in the drive. So damn hot, well, I'm barely alive. Ain't got no beer, so I don't know what I'll do. 'Cause I'm in this back room, the Black Dog Blues. I got the low down, spellbound, let down, unsound, underground, run down by the hellhound, Black Dog Blues. I got the all pain, no gain, hard rain, no brain, insane, Novocaine, ball and chain, Black Dog Blues. Well, someone's got it in for me, they're telling dirty lies. I don't ever listen, I got troubles up to my eyes. Sleeping in a concrete box, holes in my shoes. Walking in the rain with the Black Dog Blues. I got the low down, spellbound, let down, unsound, underground, run down Black Dog Blues.